There we go. And it is working. Great. And just like that, thank you guys so much. We are now live. We appreciate you guys being here. This is going to be a really fun show. Really excited to talk about deuterium and how that plays a role in our health. So this is going to be a great show. This is episode 661. I hope you guys are having a great Monday wherever you are in the world, but most people don't listen to our shows live. Most people listen to the podcast version, but wherever you are, whatever time it is, I hope you're having a great time. And everything is going great for you. This is episode 661. So if you guys want to listen to the show on the website or grab the show notes or grab the links to the guest website, sponsors, anything like that, all you got to remember is 661. So if you go to extremehealthradio.com/661, we'll put all those show links. I'll do my best to take, good show links for you, show notes for you, so you guys can check all of that out. And let me see if there's anything else to get to. Oh, yeah, our upcoming show schedule. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, I would highly recommend subscribing. A lot of cool people coming up. Today we got, obviously, Dr. Q Collins, and let's see, Dr. Cooper, Dr. Ann Cooper. We're going to be talking about deuterium. And then on Wednesday, we have Elliot Holst. He's a strong man. He's a really deep guy, philosopher, cool guy, cool guy. So Elliot Holst is going to be here on Wednesday. And then on Friday, we've got Scott Nelson. We'll be talking about a big, long word called photobiomodulation, or LLLT, low-level light therapy, as they call it in PubMed. So we'll talk about red light therapy on Friday. And then next Monday, I should say, we have Dr. Zach Bush, Dr. Randy Tent next week, Sim Land. We'll be talking with him about intermittent fasting, autophagy, and all that good stuff. So a lot of cool stuff. So if you haven't subscribed on iTunes or anywhere that you listen to this show, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the shows. So today we have a really interesting topic for you, and I'm really excited about it myself because I feel like it's something that's sort of trending, but it's not a new, it might be a new discovery, but it's not a new substance, and that is deuterium. And many of you guys might be wondering, what the heck is deuterium? So we're going to get into that, what deuterium is, where it comes from, why we want to be deuterium depleted, and how deuterium affects chronic long-term diseases. Maybe some mysterious illnesses that you might have could be connected to this thing called deuterium. So really interesting substance, and we'll talk all about this. Today we've got Dr. Q Collins and Dr. Ann Cooper from the Center for Deuterium Depletion. This is crazy, right? They have a whole center up in LA, I think they are. We're just down in just about an hour south of LA ourselves right now. And let me bring up Dr. Q's his bio here. So he's a principal scientist, deuterium depletion therapies. He's got a Ph.D. in clinical immunology, an MS in Oncotherapeutics, an MA in experimental pathology, and a BS in poverty healthcare and cancer epidemiology. Whew, that's a lot, right? And Dr. Ann Cooper has got a master's in acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, a doctor of chiropractic. She's a licensed esthetician, certified in clinical nutrition, applied kinesiology, functional medicine, energetic medicine, and herbal medicine. So this is going to be a cool show. So let me bring them on so you guys can hear from them. And we're going to dive deep into deuterium and what it does. All right, so let's bring them on the show. Thanks, guys, for joining us today. We really appreciate this.
Well, we appreciate the invite.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we heard about you, like I was telling you guys before the show, from our good friend Luke Story, and I've known about deuterium for a couple years now, and doing a little bit of research here and there. But it's interesting. We'll start off with you, Dr. Ann. Deuterium is the substance that no one really knows about yet. It's not really mainstream yet, is it?
It's not mainstream, but it really is our joy and pleasure to be able to share the knowledge that we have learned about deuterium, because we really feel that it's important for everybody to know about, so that they can really learn to take care of themselves by themselves.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Q, with deuterium, was I correct in saying that it's obviously not a new substance? It's been around since the beginning of time, right? But it's a new sort of discovery. Is that correct?
Well, no, actually, the first, the last Nobel Prize was given 2 years ago for deuterium in the nanomotors. It's very, very old. It's just new to being, we're just the first people to really apply it clinically, but it's been around for not only as the original, when you think about the Big Bang is really hydrogen and deuterium splitting. Or that's what the Big Bang is. So the deuterium and hydrogen created the world as we know it now. So it's been around forever. It's about every 155 hydrogens out of a million are deuterium. So it's just, I always like to call it the fat cousin of hydrogen. That's the easiest way to think about it. And it's all about that size. And that really is the thing that determines not only health, but how old you are or how you look, how long you're going to live. It is the basic element that controls everything. That makes sense because it's also the basic element that you and everything else on Earth is made of.
So that's why we should care about deuterium, and having too much. That's the whole point of your guys' work, right? Is to deplete the body of deuterium. Is that right?
Yes, actually, we're from UCLA. We've been doing and we've been studying metabolism in different aspects of it for about 30 years as part of CIDMAP, part of UCLA in Los Angeles. This deuterium part is really the work of a progression of 30 years of understanding how metabolism works. We are leaders not only in that, but also in understanding the way pathways work. Dr. Boros, who isn't here today, is probably discovered more the way to trace the pathways. For instance, one of the assays that we are able to do here is to actually track the 75,000 different metabolic pathways that you have simply using you just eating glucose, labeled glucose, and we can tell you where that glucose goes, where those hydrogen goes, where they go to fat, they go to your DNA. So we do a lot more. It just so happens that the final thing that we find out is that deuterium is the thing that controls all those metabolic pathways. Deuterium is the thing that controls when we talk about epigenetics. It's not epigenetics, it's just simply the ratio of hydrogen to deuterium that controls all those things.
That's so fascinating. And Dr. Cooper, how did you get involved with all of this?
Well, once I heard about deuterium, after all of the years of working one-on-one with patients, it was really kind of nice to see something that really we could share. I could be able to work with a lot more people at the one time, but it made sense to me on a physiological level. But then I did hear Dr. Boros speak, and I saw some pretty amazing before and after cases that had a lot of success with deuterium depletion. And then personally myself, once I experienced deuterium depletion, how it made me feel, I was really on board, and it made my work really interesting, because even working with functional medicine, our goal, and we really take pride in really trying to find what's really causing issues with people. And it's quite difficult sometimes because the body is very complicated, and sometimes we still really didn't know where to start. We're doing all sorts of tests to figure out what's really causing these issues. Rather than chasing things upstream, we're trying to find out what's the root cause, is what we call it. And once I thought about deuterium, I realized now we're really getting deep into the subcellular level. And how far back can we go than that? And, I realized that, yes, we need energy, or cellular energy, for all of the trillions of actions that are happening every moment in our body. And if we lose some of that cellular energy, something gets unfunded. And I think it's usually whatever weak spot there is, whether it be genetic or something that we've worn down through our lifestyle. That's the place that tends to kind of go first, or we notice issues with that area first, usually. And if that's not being funded, then the body doesn't have the ability to do what it's made to do, which is to funnel the energy to that area and create a repair process, which is what happens in our body. Our body is designed to fix things along the way. That's why if we break our bone, our body will go to work and fix it, as long as it has enough cellular energy to do so. So it really just, in a way, made my life simple. It could be incredibly complicated, and Dr. Boris and Dr. Q could really explain everything in a very, very complicated way.
Right.
And I love to learn all of those things. But to me, I really love, because I speak with regular human beings on a day-to-day basis, and I really want people to understand that this is, and it makes sense to them. And what's really been fun for me and really rewarding and makes me feel fantastic to be able to do is to explain this to everyday folks that go, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm on board. Let's do this. Let's, just they're getting it quite easily. And so that's really been fun for me, and people are really appreciating this. We get a lot of letters of thank you so much for sharing this. I'm finally really thrilled to have something that really gives me the power to learn why this is what's going on with me. Now I understand, and wow, it's really nice to know that I can have the power to take care of things rather than relying from outside sources and going everywhere. Yes, we always recommend to our patients and make sure they have their yearly physicals and checkups with their doctors and monitoring along the way and guidance along the way. That's, of course, very important, but it's nice to be able to provide patients ways that were given to us pretty much free, which the main things that we do use, there's 5 pillars, there's 7 really, but we really focus on teaching our patients to use air, which is breathing, food, water, sunshine or light therapies, and appropriate movement to be able to take care of themselves, but also fix things and to also prevent problems from happening down the road. The other 2 are their mindset. We always kind of want to know where somebody is with their thought processes to see how well they're going to be able to take this on. So we either make sure that we can help them get that help if they need it to help become in a more positive light of situation, to be able to take this information in and actually utilize it. We can often have information and not have the motivation to utilize it. So we help them to have educated choices. So once they have this information, it makes so much sense to them to kind of just change things a little bit, and it makes so much easier. It makes it so much more easy to make lifestyle changes when it makes sense. And then when you can see in the future the outcome of what's going to happen if they do a few little things, it becomes much more positive for them to do it. And we also want to know what their support systems are, that their family's on board and encourage them, and they're not, sabotaging things like that. But it has been, often when people hear lifestyle changes, they're like, oh, forget it. I'm not.
That's too much.
They don't want to. People are pretty stuck in their ways, and change is hard, and it's totally understandable. But just giving them some basic, simple things that they go, that just really makes sense. That's okay. I'm going to do that because it makes so much sense. I'm willing to make that change because it's going to be worth it for me. So that's where we're starting.
Super fascinating. I want to hear about some maybe of the turnarounds, Dr. Cooper, with some of your patients after, later on in the show. Dr. Q, I'm curious from your perspective, when it comes to what Dr. Cooper was just talking about with the energy production, and this obviously gets down to mitochondrial function, the magnetic field that the mitochondria creates, the fact that you mentioned earlier in the show that deuterium is hydrogen's sort of big fat brother kind of a thing, and how it's double the weight and all of these things. And I'm curious if you could explain from a scientific perspective how what Dr. Cooper was saying, how that shuts off the energy and the ATP production from the mitochondria. What is deuterium actually doing in the body?
Okay, that's a good question. And I always say we're the great integrators here. So if you think about what your body actually does, and this again things that we've discovered over these 20 years, when you eat food, proteins, fats, and carbs, we've always thought about that being something that's special, something different. That protein's different from carbs is different from fat. The truth is, the body doesn't really care about what those things are. All they're doing is acting as cars or vessels to carry hydrogens in. And your body strips those hydrogens off and uses those hydrogens within mitochondria to drive small motors called nanomotors. And each mitochondria has hundreds to thousands of nanomotors. So that and when those nanomotors, they spin about 9,000 revolutions per minute. Think of it like a turbine engine. Of course, that engine is faster than a Corvette's engine or Matty's engine or Ferrari's engine at the revolutions per minute. And so every time that nanomotor goes around, it makes energy. So it makes ATP, ATP. And as we know, within the TCA cycle, within your mitochondria, you make about 38 ATP per every molecule of glucose you get. Now, the interesting part about that is when that hydrogen is a deuterium, it's so big and so heavy, so massive, that it hits that nanomotor and it breaks it. And so that is the definition. This is we're always going in. The deuterium hitting the nanomotor, breaking the nanomotor, and as more and more nanomotors are broken, then that mitochondria becomes dysfunctional. And the thing is, you can't repair. You've got to rebuild those nanomotors to make them work again. And so you get this vicious cycle. I'll let Dr. Cooper, I'm not going to steal her thunder on that because she's about her cyclic story, because I love the way she tells it. But so that's one part of it. So these nanomotors make energy via your hydrogens. That's all it is. Nothing. I'm a keto person. I'm one of the probably people that help bring keto in usage for cancer over the last 9 years. And the interesting thing is keto there's really nothing special about it now that we understand it. Keto is simply a deuterium depleted diet, because if an animal eats grass, then grass is deuterium depleted. Any green plant is deuterium depleted. And that means the fat that the animal makes from that grass is deuterium depleted. So we eat that, fat being so much in a ketogenic diet, that means you're eating this big glob of deuterium depleted fat. And here's really the neat thing about it too. There's a lot of neat things, but not only every time, the discovery that we've really pushed now is not only does your body make energy every time from these hydrogens, but more importantly, and something that nobody knew, is it makes water, what we call metabolic water, or matrix water. And so this is all this thing that's so hot, and people talking about matrix water. And well, that's true. Again, we don't, it's like make anything, we just make everything better. Right. Even with matrix water, the way that works is the deuterium, again, think of deuterium as being heavier, and your body is made of water. A matrix water is solid. It's not like a liquid. It's really just almost like a metal. So anytime you get deuterium within that matrix water, it makes it even more viscous and more thick. And so those nanomotors, again, can't turn and they break. So once you understand that deuterium and hydrogens not only matter about energy, but also in three-dimensional structures, it's what determines the three-dimensional structure of matrix, the three-dimensional structures of DNA, the three-dimensional structures of your bones, of your proteins, because all of these things are held together by hydrogens. If you replace a hydrogen with the deuterium, then it's just like anything else. If making a model plane and you have all the same screws, but then you replace those screws with screws that are twice as big, then that model plane can't fly anymore. And it's just like in our bodies. It's just that it really is so simple, and everything, you can explain everything in terms of deuterium in our body, because that's just biology and it's just the way it works.
That's
Now,
so.
what's really neat, Justin, and then I'll be quiet. What's
No.
really neat though is what we've been able to do is take that knowledge and be able to apply it to health. That's our claim to fame. It's
Mm-hmm.
been out there a long time, but we were able to make diagnostics that we can now see deuterium in your body. That was the big jump for medicine. So we
Oh.
expect in 5 years that this is just going to be, and we already teach it at UCLA, it's being taught at the University of Washington. Um, this is going to be everyday medical school teaching, and it's just going to be part of medicine as we know it in 5 years. Right now, we're pushing it forward.
That's interesting. That's so fascinating. You said so many things there where I had a ton of questions. So I'm going to try to remember some of them from what you just said, and either one of you feel free to answer. So when you're talking about deuterium, I'll just ask as many questions as I can think of based on what you just said. Is deuterium twice the size or twice the weight as a hydrogen?
So if you think about it, so it's the cool thing, it's both. Because remember, the atomic weight's only one. So,
I see.
in this case,
It has an extra neutron.
it has an extra neutron.
I
But the
see.
atomic, it's just, when we think about oxygen, carbon, and all those other things, an extra neutron is no big deal. But
Okay.
it's both.
It's both.
And
Okay.
yeah, and what's also, once you put a deuterium into something, it has this attractive power, this isotopic power that's going to draw the next 100 to another 1,000 hydrogens to it, so it balls up in a knot. So it changes everything.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so because that's another one of my questions is consuming something that is deuterium depleted. Is that just like consuming clean water versus consuming dirty water, or is it something that's actually going to be doing something inside your body that's going to get rid of other deuterium? So when someone consumes too much deuterium, it's going to attract other hydrogens to it and screw that whole cycle up as well?
Yeah, it's pretty when you think about it. So one thing we like to say, it has nothing about what you put in. It has to do with how much your body can deplete it.
I
As you
see.
get older, you deplete less. That's what ages you, is your inability to deplete deuterium. It's amazing. That's what makes you snore. That's what gives you sleep apnea. All these things are related to it because it's just part of the aging process. So
Oh.
yes, as you get older, you've got to do one of two things. You've got to either keep the amount of deuterium you eat and put it in your body lower, or you've got to make sure that all your lifestyle things that Dr. Cooper talked about, like sleeping and breathing correctly and light that you get, you have to make sure that you do all of those much better to keep your ability to deplete deuterium, because everything your body does is to deplete deuterium, everything. And so, and once it falls apart, what happens is your body, actually life tries to take you out once you can't deplete deuterium.
So, Dr. Ann, in terms of depleting deuterium, lifestyle obviously matters a lot. Are we, as a culture, consuming too many foods that have deuterium in it, or are we just unable to deplete the deuterium that we do have?
It is both. And I always really appreciate the amazing body in that many mechanisms have been put in place to protect our nanomotors and mitochondria from the deuterium. It's always trying to replace those deuteriums with regular hydrogens, and it's always trying to keep the deuterium away from the really critical area of cellular energy production. And I also correlate, when I look back at our great grandparents, we can always all look back at what they were eating. And my great grandparents were not eating potato chips or things out of packaged bags and containers.
Right.
It's just, that's the way it was. And we all got busier and we needed this more lifestyle where everything was more convenient. But in the long run, it's making life pretty inconvenient towards the end of our life. So just want people to think about that to help with their priorities. It may be a little bit more of work or a hassle to live in a little bit of a backwards way where we prepare our own foods more, but plan on having a great 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, enjoying that part of your life rather than having a body that's really breaking down and taking away your joy and purpose of living. And there is a correlation between, the rising incidence of chronic metabolic conditions compared to a few generations ago. Yes, a lot of it is due to the food and water that we're consuming, and some of it is also due to the fact that we live in a world now that happens to have higher deuterium levels than it did way back when. So that does help us to, take precautions to protect ourselves from it by educating. We're here to educate you so you understand that you have control of how much deuterium is in your body and your tissues, and how much deuterium can get to those nanomotors and break them. And we have the knowledge to provide you with ways to test how much is in your tissues, which gives you a lot of information of where you are at. But also we're going to provide you tools in how to deplete the deuterium so that you can life in general in many, many ways.
So, oh, sorry. I wanted to ask you before you went on, why do we have more deuterium in today's world? You mentioned today's world. Then is it just toxicities and things, or why do we have more of it now than 100 years ago?
This is pretty cool. So global warming. When we talk about global warming, it's a double-edged sword that we talk about CO2 and these kind of things. Okay. However, that's not the whole story. What happens is the sun goes into the water vapor, and that water vapor is what heats things up. Okay. So if the sun goes into water that's this H2O that has the regular hydrogens on it, it takes that energy and takes the plants and takes the animals and transfers that energy from the sun to a plant or to you or to an animal. Okay. If deuterium is in that, what happens instead, it makes heat. So the reason we see the temperature rising is because the deuterium levels are increasing. And as that increases, what we're seeing is, as we know, is seeing the polar ice caps, and we're seeing all the ice melt. Well, guess what? That's what sequesters deuterium. So during the ice, and we get these warmings since the ice age, more and more as the planet warmed up, as more ice is released, more deuterium is being released into the atmosphere until it's this vicious cycle and that's really what's speeding up global warming. In addition, the other things, GMO foods are growing so much more because GMOs require their high levels of deuterium. Anything that grows fast requires deuterium. Bacteria, we see more virus and bacterial infections and going on. It isn't because we're cutting all the trees and letting the monkeys out of the jungles as they want to believe. It's really simply because there's more deuterium. Deuterium is the thing that fuels bacteria and viruses to grow. So it's just such a, and then the other things that we're doing, which again Dr. Cooper talked about, we don't sleep as well. We're more anxious. All those mechanisms that we use to get rid of the deuterium, we just don't do anymore. And we always try to while we're the Center for Deuterium Depletion, people tend to not understand that we talk about a lot of things like how sunlight works. We were doing this 20 years ago to talking about how sunlight works, how chronobiology works, how all these things go together. And we've published over 100 publications on different parts of metabolism, which a lot of people use, and we're glad they do. But now we're put this all together to figure out how the puzzle works so we can protect. For instance, we talk about EMS. We can explain how EMS work, how you can protect yourself. You're going to be talking to Scott Nelson, which is a great friend of ours at Juve. And we're actually doing a study together where we're looking at how red and near-infrared light works. And guess what? It works through hydrogens and deuterium. And we're going to do a big study on that moving soon. He's one of our great friends. We work with DexaFit, who actually DexaFit is, we use the DEXA to measure fat and bone density and all these things. And we can see the relationship of how you lower your deuterium levels and how your body fat goes away, because that's it's just biology. It's amazing. I wish we could say that we discovered something, but we didn't. We simply have this microscope or new lens that we're able to look at old things and explain simply how they work.
It's so interesting. Yeah, it's so fascinating, this whole thing. I want to understand it more. Feel free, either one of you, to chime in. I want to understand more about like what it's doing, what it does in the body. You said it breaks those nanomotors, but then it also attracts hydrogen to it. So essentially, it's causing the mitochondria to not be able to produce energy, right? But it's got to be doing other things too, right?
Oh, yeah. That's where we start with the energy, but let's talk about DNA. And people, I am not, even though I'm a clinical immunologist and started as a molecular biologist, I will tell you DNA is a roadmap. That's all it is. You are not a prisoner of your DNA. But what happens is that DNA, that pretty ladder, that pretty structure is put together, it's held together by hydrogens, perfectly by hydrogens. Now, when you change those hydrogens in that DNA, it opens it up. And so now that DNA can't close, so it keeps replicating. That's what cancer is. So it just keeps replicating because the DNA can't close. And I'll give you a great example. We have several patients who telomere, measure their telomeres, and they've been told, "Oh my God, you're sick. You're so old. You have you're not looking good." We put them on deuterium depletion for a year, and their telomeres get longer. Something that was never reported, and something that throws that whole idea out the window. So again, even telomeres, it's not the length, it's the three-dimensional structure of what hydrogens do to it. So
cramping it up, it's making it fold, so it appears shorter. So they tell you you're going to have a shorter lifespan, but it's not really that they're shorter. It's just that they are being cramped up due to the deuterium in there. So once you lower deuterium,
now that is really interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting because it's because they tell you that they're actually it's being shaved off almost at the ends of the telomeres, but really it's like a bungee cord or something that kind of crumples within itself, but it can be re-extended then.
Yes, it can be re-extended, and it's amazing. Same way with we act even allergies. So if you look at allergies, it's simple, or even diabetes. So it would change the three-dimensional structure of not only your insulin, but also of your receptors, right? So now they can't bind anymore. So that's the reason for that disease. And if you look at cholesterol, that everybody's taking, and I'm one of those people that helped invent a drug I won't talk about for cholesterol binding.
Back in your former days, folks. Right?
Yeah. In my former as a bad person. But if you look at that cholesterol, the way cholesterol works is the sun hits cholesterol and turns that cholesterol into steroid hormones, your vitamin D, bile, and a myriad of a lot of other things. Now, if deuterium is in that cholesterol, the sun can't break it. So that's the reason you see a lot of patients that have high cholesterol, low testosterone or low estrogen. They can't digest fats. Not because, and so taking a Lipitor or pravastatin isn't friggin' helpful because you're not making anything. You're simply removing it from the system. And it's not that high levels of cholesterol bad for you. It's high levels of the wrong cholesterol that's bad for you. So that's another big discovery. Deuterated cholesterol.
What do you call that? Deuterate?
Deuterated. That's another word we've made up.
Oh, okay.
Deuterated. So
deuterated cholesterol, because I've been told that the bonds between the hydrogens and cholesterol, if they are deuterium, they're 7 times stronger than if it happened to be, if it's supposed to be regular hydrogens. So therefore, the sun is not able to break them as readily. So that cholesterol, one of our major nutrients, is actually usable, broken down into a usable form.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That is just so interesting to me that so much of what we hear is antithetical to what you guys are saying. And that's why we want to do shows like this is highlighting you guys. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now, but when I come back, I want to talk with you, Dr. Cooper, about some of the turnarounds you've had with people and depleting people of deuterium. And I want to find out the benefits of hydrogen and stuff like that. And so I hope you guys are enjoying the show wherever you are listening around the world. If you guys want to visit their website, it is called ddcenters.com. Make sure to check them out. And I wanted to tell you guys too, about a really cool product that our friend Daniel Vitalis is doing right now. He has this on sale. It's the biggest sale of the year, and it is colostrum, and it's nature's first food. And we just ordered, I think it was like a 4.4 pound bag of this colostrum. But check it out right now.
Forget superfoods. Colostrum is mammals' first food. Containing the essential building blocks for growth, gut integrity, and immune health. Often referred to as liquid gold, colostrum is known to balance immune function, support digestive health, and increase endurance and lean muscle mass. Colostrum's naturally balanced and living nutrition, which supplies growth and immune factors, is a delicious dose of restoration that's easy to use in powder or capsule form. Clean, conscientious, tested antibiotic-free, and produced in a U.S. GMP certified facility, it's your first food for second chances.
I love that, first food for second chances. But yeah, he's running the biggest colostrum sale of the year. So if you guys are interested, he's also got some really cool other products there at Surthrival. We love supporting him and the work that he's doing. He's got this dual extracted reishi and chaga, and myrin glass and spring water with organic grape alcohol, dual extractions. I mean, this is really powerful stuff that he's got over there. And he's got the pine pollen, which is really great for your hormones. And a lot of really cool things at Surthrival. So if you guys want to pick up some of the colostrum, the other thing that's really great about colostrum too is it's really, really good for helping to seal and keep your gut, good, nice, tight junctions in your gut and gut integrity, as well as boosting immune system. And it's just, it's one of those things that I take it every day. You can take it in multiple forms. You can put it in smoothies. You can just put it in some almond milk with some stevia or something like that. It's really, really an incredible food. And sometimes what I like to do is I like to sort of combine it with this product here. Speaking of like gut health, this is the Stockton Aloe 1 product, and we talk about it a lot because we love this stuff. It is just one of the best products, I think, going out there. And, aloe vera is nature's sort of first superfood. I mean, aloe vera has been consumed by cultures and civilizations around the world for thousands and thousands of years. This particular brand is great because it doesn't have any of those excipients or those weird chemicals or weird tag-along substances that are in most aloe vera. I mean, you go to your health food store and you look at the aloe vera that's there, and it's going to have all kinds of weird other ingredients. This one is just pure, freshly harvested aloe vera that they grow themselves, and they freeze or they ship to you flash frozen. So it's really cool. It's never heated, never pasteurized, 100% aloe vera. And aloe vera is just, man, you combine aloe vera with colostrum and talk about gut integrity and proper gut health. But it's also got over 75 different compounds in this particular brand. And obviously the best situation would be to grow aloe vera yourself. But in today's weird, crazy world, it's so fast-paced that sometimes we don't have time to do that. What's cool about aloe vera is that it has these long-chain sugars that are called polysaccharides. And these are great for your immune system. And it also has amino acids, enzymes, minerals, vitamins. But what's interesting is it has this kind of unique substance in there called ace-mannan, which helps to induce macrophages in your body to produce interferon, as well as interleukins, and as well as tumor necrosis factor A. So this is a really, really great product for your immune system, for your gut health. I think it's something that we should all be on. I mean, look at this stuff. If you guys are watching on YouTube, I mean, look at that. I mean, it's like so soothing and cooling to your body. And we had a doctor on recently, Dr. Donnie Wilson, and she was talking about gut health. And listen to what she had to say about this.
And then I encourage, we can talk more about this. What do I do to help people speed up the healing of leaky gut?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you mentioned aloe before, mm-hmm. and that is one of the herbs that I definitely recommend, using for helping to heal leaky gut. You want to use herbs that are anti-inflammatory and soothing and healing to the intestinal lining. So aloe is a great one.
Aloe is a great one. It's my favorite. That's my favorite. So if you guys want to pick up, I think they will send to you 2 half-gallon containers of this, and they don't even send it on the weekends because they're concerned about the heat and destroying the enzymes and things like that. So they'll send it to you fresh, frozen. And it's hand harvested, it's raw, it's unfiltered, unprocessed, unheated, 0 chemicals, 0 preservatives. It's just awesome. And you can take like a therapeutic dose, which is like probably, I think 18 to 24 ounces a day, or you could just take, 1 to 8 ounces a day as a sort of tonic. And the guy that started the company, Rodney Stockton, he lived till he was 96. And of course he says that one of the reasons why he lived so long was, of course, the aloe vera. But I'm sure it was a lot of different reasons. I'm sure he had strong, healthy genetics, lived a healthy lifestyle, I'm sure. But, that's extremely anecdotal, but this is just good stuff to be on an ongoing basis. So pick up some of the Stockton Aloe 1. That's if you guys are watching on YouTube, there's links down below for that. If you guys are listening on the podcast version and you want to check out some of the colostrum or the Stockton Aloe 1 and sort of combine it, all you got to do, we'll put links at extremehealthradio.com. Let me see if I can get this number, /661. And that way you can grab some of the Stockton Aloe 1 as well as the colostrum. And so let me bring the good doctors back on so we can keep talking about deuterium. And let's turn up their microphones there. And Dr. Cooper, I wanted to ask you about some specific case studies that you've had with depleting people's deuterium levels. I'm sure you've seen all kinds of things happen as a result of that.
Yeah, I'm having fun every day hearing back from people that are giving me all sorts of good news. But not only the way they feel, but also the fact that they can really understand how their body's actually working. And that's kind of 101. It's going to really help you to be able to follow through. So I really help them to understand, first of all, that deuterium is kind of like acting like a thick, gluggy oil inside their engine, and it's inhibiting from the car engine from moving properly to be able to get to where it wants to be. And so this extra load of deuterium is doing the same thing inside their cells. I want people to be able to picture the tiny little cells not being able to function properly and produce cellular energy, which is what's required for all these great things to happen. And the yucky thing about deuterium is that the more we get, the more it bogs down our cellular energy, the more we lose our own natural mechanisms for depleting deuterium. So we keep it at the right level to function. So it does create this vicious downhill negative cycle, in that the more we get, the more we lose our ability to deplete it. Therefore, the more we get, the more we can't get rid of it. The worse we feel, the more we get. And that's why it's a bad story, right? So we have great pleasure of being able to teach people that you can actually turn that nasty cycle around to a really positive upward cycle, in that the more you deplete it initially, as we get it low enough below, we want to get it below a 130 ppm, and most people start out higher than that in age. So once they get it below a certain level, they're not inhibited. They have enough cellular energy now to kick in their own natural mechanisms for depleting it. Therefore, the more you deplete it, the more you can deplete it, the more you deplete it. So you start to get this better. You start to feel better, the more energy you can make, and then you start to go in a whole opposite cycle. That's quite empowering for people to just think about and learn about and go, wow, if I do this, I can really switch things around. And it gets them very positive and motivated. So the stories I hear, I talk to Dr. Q, they really focus on cancer. And I do speak to a lot of the patients that are dealing with cancer. And first of all, a lot of great stories from them. For example, young guy with stage 4 colon cancer who we referred to an oncologist, and he went through quite a bit of chemo, and he called me and said, Dr. Cooper, I'm in remission, but I didn't lose my hair, and I didn't have any of those horrible things happen to me that I heard that it was going to happen, because as you deplete your deuterium, you do have more cellular energy, so you don't get as much fatigue or the chemo brain, things like that. And Dr. Q will explain to you how that works, how deuterium can be a fuel for tumors to grow, but as you deplete it, you are now able, you have many things that help you. Not only are you taking away the fuel, but you're enabling your immune system to act in a way that's more robust. And so you have a stronger immune system that can deal with things. And as they go through their standard of care, it enables them to be stronger and more robust, so that even the oncologists have stronger patients even coming into it, which they like. And they have patients that are doing better along the way. So that's always nice to hear from our patients. And, we have a lot of prostate cancer patients last week who's telling me, yes, the scan is done and there's less metastasis and there's less tumor growing. I mean, all the patients are just thrilled to hear that, because they haven't been hearing that so much. Then on the other hand, I just really, they work with cancer patients, but early on I realized, well, cellular energy is for everything. So most people after a certain age, in the 90s, in the teenage and 20s and early 30s, maybe you have found this energy and you never think you're going to need to slow down or rest or see a physician. But most people above that are really wanting more energy. So, okay, that's the great thing to have. Let's not be suffering. And when you have less energy, you can't accomplish things in life. You start to get down. So what I hear from most patients in the early days, in the first few days, weeks, that they do have more energy. They feel better. They can accomplish more. They get out of bed, being able to do more. And that creates a lot of happiness. The other one is sleep. They tell me they really can sleep better, and that they may not even need as much sleep, but still feel better. And the other one is cognition. People tell me early on that they can focus and read and pay attention and write better. So those are the three that I do notice early on. We've had quite a few patients who have a lot of strange diagnoses, like combinations of things like Lyme's and EMF sensitivity. And these people have had to really move away from their lives and sometimes their family, and are living in a tree somewhere practically, because they just can't deal with the world the way it is. Their body's broken down and it's not strong enough. And we've had people write to us, and in increments. In the beginning, my pain is better, I'm doing better, and then down the road, oh, I'm moving out of my tree, and I think this is the most amazing thing. And thank you for sharing deuterium depletion with me, because now I'm making my life about deuterium depletion, and I'm going to raise pigs in a deuterium depleted manner so I could be a part of this, sharing this with everybody.
That's so interesting. So I'm curious about your thoughts, Dr. Cooper, about you talk about energy production and the like, and the number one thing that people focus on when they're getting chemotherapy and radiation is how it just completely zaps their energy. What do we know about the combination or the interaction between chemotherapy, radiation, and deuterium?
So let me take that one. So we treated over 10. So most people don't know. Again, we've been around for a long time. We've had 4 clinical trials. So we're not fake. We've treated over 10,000 cancer patients already. But we also have won 6 gold medals in the last Winter Olympics. Some of our clients, because this is good for every stage of life. It's just life. So chemo, when radiation, the way it works is as you become deuterium depleted, it makes chemo and radiation work better. There's plenty of papers published out there, some I published about the ketogenic diet and how it works. The ketogenic diet, again, because it's deuterium depleted. Now we use Preventa deuterium depleted water is one of the people that we tell everybody not all deuterium depleted water is equal. So these are the people that have done all of the research it's a GMP facility. It's out of Hungary, but the other stuff is like, generic aspirin. So when I look at someone, and I've lost 2 loved ones to cancer, I'm going to use the best stuff that's out there, the one that's been a lot like you just talked about in your commercial, the thing that's been tested. And so we use Preventa deuterium depleted water. And we're now making foods to go along with that and shakes to go along with that. I'm one of the people that helped invent to test and get exogenous ketones to market. So we're now looking at making these deuterium depleted ketone exogenous ketones. So it is so incredibly important, and this integrated approach. One of our main doctors is the president of the American Medical College of Advancement for Medicine, and we understand that this, by deuterium depleted, it actually makes we haven't seen anything it doesn't help. It shrinks a tumor, therefore surgery works better. It gives you more energy, therefore you're able to now not be fatigued. It keeps your skin integrity, so it keeps your inflammation down and glucose down. So now gangrene and things for diabetes, they're not there anymore. So it's just everything. We almost want to say it's like what is it, Windex. We almost, we sometimes joke, but it's just the basis of the way biology works.
And do we know? Do we know if you're consuming something that is deuterium depleted, does that deplete deuterium in your body, or is that just simply consuming something that's deuterium depleted?
No. So again, what you're able to do and it's very important. Food is number one in our approach. It's very, very important, as is sunlight and water. However, as Dr. Cooper just said, as you deplete your deuterium, then what's going to happen? You start breathing better. Breathing is one of the ways, because oxygen plus hydrogen makes water. So it's one of the ways you remove deuterium from your body. Sleep is very important. Every time you become deuterium depleted, you start to sleep better because you remove deuterium during your deep sleep and your REM sleep. So that's also where you get rid of carbs. That's where your lymphatics open. All these things are coordinated and timed, and are all coordinated in time by the ratio of deuterium that's in your body at that time. So, food is utmost. And unfortunately, as people what ends up happening, especially in cancer, is that as people become sicker and sicker, more metabolically challenged, they no longer can use all the foods. They can't use fats effectively. They can't use protein effectively. They start to only use glucose. And the problem is, when they use only glucose, that's also the thing that the cancers only can use. And so that's what ends up actually making the cancer actually lethal. It's just this inability for your body to use other nutrients.
It's so interesting. So if someone were to do a test, I have a couple questions. I've heard people say anywhere from 147 to 153 ppm is okay, but I think Dr. Cooper, you mentioned lower, right? That you want. And are you testing the blood? Or are you testing the serum? What are you testing, and what levels are good?
So go ahead.
Well, we test using a device that the doctors have designed. It's a breathing device, so we're actually collecting the condensation that comes from the heart and the lungs, and we measure the deuterium in that to give us an indication of the deuterium load in someone's tissues. Okay. And then we also collect a saliva test, because that's what your body is excreting. So we like to compare those two numbers together to give us an idea of the level in their tissue, but also compare the difference to see how well or unwell their own mechanisms for removing it are working. And so we can
that's it. And we also measure it in your biomolecules. So when we've gone through this of work, we used to do it in blood, and we don't have to. We can use saliva now, and we can use urine. But we can also measure your biomolecules. So we can take part of that saliva sample, and we can measure how much, a marker for how much is in your bones and in your hair, in your cholesterol. We can do that. We can use an MRI to actually see it. So it's not a marker, but we can see where they are and where it's stacked up. So we have some athletes that come in and you have a bad muscle. Well, it's because your muscle's not releasing deuterium, and they can get that worked on and get back on the field. So these are all tests that we use, and we have a lot more tests, but these are the ones that we use for the public more than anything else. They're very inexpensive and easy to do. And like Dr. Cooper said, let me go back one. There's a lot of other things that people out there talking about. Oh, this number is good, this number is bad. Right. Like you just said. Well, that's just not. Whoever's saying, I wish they stop. Because I can tell you off the air. I can tell you off the air. Yeah. Well, I already know. Yeah. I already know. Right. But here's the biggest problem. That's just not. We're all individuals, and that's just not true. Okay. It depends on the circumstance of the individual, and that's what we do. Again, that's what we do, and it's what we've been doing for 30 years. We measure these things in relationship to the way it works. So yes, there's a lot of people walking around with 147 that are healthy, well, that are not showing disease yet.
I see.
But they will down the line. We really, if we could all do it, we want it always under 130. It's just so incredibly difficult to do. It's 15,000 years ago, it'd have been easy. It's hard now. So now we've come up with protocols that cycle you through it, so to make you safe in this unsafe world.
What's the lowest? Really, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. What's the lowest you've gotten someone down to in your testing?
Well, I've been in the 90s after a 72-day fast. And then we have a lot of some professional athletes that are in the 80s. But that's, again, it's not, I always say we don't want deuterium envy. It has nothing to do with how low you can go. Like Dr. Cooper said, it's how much you can deplete and what that means to your clinical status. And that's what we're all about. It's really, my God, we don't want this stuff for people to start thinking of it as a supplement that you can still do bad things and just drink water. That's not, that's going to screw everything up really bad. So the idea now, go ahead.
Sorry, Dr. Cooper. So that's interesting what Dr. Collins was saying, that 147, I mentioned that number to 153 but then he said below 130, and that's only like a 17-point difference, but that's a big difference. That's a big enough difference to make an actual difference. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's very much to me.
We're talking about parts per million. So when it comes into the millions, point so difference is actually a lot. So there's a big difference between below 130 in the tissues and having close to 150. And all we can say from our testing is what we find the deuterium levels are in someone's tissue. And we really can't say anything else. However, I do see from talking to people, we see correlations. I speak to people every day. This is how I feel. These are my symptoms, between people who are lower in deuterium and then people who tests come back with higher deuterium levels have a lot more complaints and symptoms.
Interesting.
And they could really, really vary. So we use the deuterium depleted water initially because it works. It's the fastest and most efficient way to get the deuterium levels depleted quickly, so we can kick back in those motors again. But we don't want people to become reliant on deuterium depleted water forever. Our whole goal is to educate people, empower them, yes, so that they can learn how they can manage and maintain their deuterium levels for the rest of their life, practically free from the knowledge that we give them. Because yes, we all learned in school that the Krebs cycle or the TCA cycle with these nanomotors is to create ATP, which is our cellular energy, our fuel. But this was what was amazing to me. I was like, I need a refund on all my textbooks because we weren't taught this, is that we actually, one of the big purposes is that each phase it goes through is actually recycling hydrogens, and we are actually a water recycling plant. So we can actually teach people that they can, recycle their water, but also what's really amazing is that they can make their own deuterium depleted metabolic water themselves based upon the foods that they eat, particularly fats. We actually convert fats into this deuterium depleted water as long as the fats come from a deuterium depleted source. Okay. So we really actually educate people about the camel, because a camel, they're ugly, yes, but you can't tell an old camel from a young camel. And the way they age is really how we want to age, because it's fat on their backs, and they convert that fat into deuterium depleted water. So their motors are working properly so that they don't break down as they age. They don't start to limp. Their head doesn't drop down and look old. And that's actually how we want to age. We want to live our life feeling good all the way along. And, when it's time to go, which hopefully will be longer, we will have had a much more active and a life that's not been painful, and then we'll go.
Yeah. Have we ever tested camels for their deuterium levels? Yeah.
Yes. So the fats is very, very deuterium depleted, because amazing. And again, we have to be careful. That's wild camels that eat cactus, not the camels that you see in Wisconsin that are eating grains.
Right,
Not
right.
the same thing. So that's always such an interesting thing. But yeah, camels are amazing.
We won't make you look like a camel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really believe there's no reason for the average person not to be able to live to be 150 or 200 if they maintain their deuterium depletion, even if you screwed up for half your life. I figure I'm going to live another 40 or 50 years now that I know what I'm doing, even though I've used my body for 50 years, 55 years, but now I know what to do.
Now, what's the highest level deuterium you've ever seen in a person?
Okay, well, yeah. So here's the problem. So we can say when we see people above in the 150s and are not depleting, we tell them to go to the doctor and to go quickly.
Interesting.
How about that? And we can't say it's diagnostic. We will not say that. FDA, if you're listening, we're not saying that.
Right.
However, the highest we've seen are several individuals where we've taken their tests. They've been at 154, 155, and they have not lived very much longer after they took the test.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, we don't know what that means yet, but
Right.
we know it means something. We know it means something.
Wow.
And we know from tests, so there's plenty of experiments out there that if you are to give an animal more and more deuterium, so you raise the deuterium levels, we know that mice and rats and rabbits and monkeys die at above 155.
They die at 155, and all mammals make deuterium, or actually.
Everything. Deuterium is natural. It's just it's just a natural part of the environment. So, and you said one thing. So the whole idea is your body does everything to deplete deuterium. It doesn't have garbage bags on each animal. In other words, takes all the extra deuterium and puts in these garbage bags and gets rid of it at night. So Laszlo likes to say and plus, if you look at the amount of deuterium, why you say that 17-point drop, like you got billions of hydrogens in your body. So it's billions and billions and billions of deuterium we're talking about that are there. Mm-hmm. So that's another problem. And it's also since your body, everybody's body is going to be able to deplete some deuterium, some people more effectively. Mm-hmm. So the question isn't how many there are, but how many you can't remove. It's like having terrorists. It doesn't take a lot of terrorists to cause a lot of damage.
Right.
So that's the way. If you look at it that way, it's easy to understand. It's a natural thing that we should have. And if you're younger, you're a teenager, you're a baby, you're growing, deuterium is actually required for babies to grow. It's
for
a
growth,
good thing.
Right?
Yeah. It's just not a good thing when you get older.
It's interesting, and I'm not sure what your spiritual beliefs are or anything, but I remember back years ago when I was studying the Bible a lot, they would, talk about, what is his name? Methuselah, right? He lived to, they said, 969 years old. And I've often wondered what the cause for that was, if that's a true story. But, you talked about before aging is a result of not being able to deplete deuterium. And who knows what was involved in all of that? Yeah,
actually, we've done. If anybody searches it, and Anne's laughing already. We've done quite a bit of videos on deuterium in the Bible. And Laszlo was actually in Israel talking to the Knesset 2 weeks ago about the same type of thing. So it's actually in the Bible, in Genesis, and how these things work. In Deuteronomy.
Really?
That's what Deuteronomy, deuterium.
But Dr. Barnes did put together a lecture for the UCLA, and in the beginning I was like, I don't know how that's going to be received, but he just explains it where the biggest scientists in the world now understand it. I mean, it's really amazing that it's kind of astonishing that it's taken this long to learn about this in relation to ourselves. That's what surprises me, but thank goodness we've got these amazing brains that have, really at our time, it's a fantastic time to be alive because now we really can utilize this information to protect ourselves.
And people like Methuselah, when you were talking about, again, the deuterium levels back then were even less than 120. They were very low. We know what the deuterium levels were all the way through history. We had those. Mm-hmm. So it was low there. So it's not unreasonable to say somebody lives 500-600 years, 900 years. I believe it. Okay, that's fine. There was remember, no bacterial infections, no viral infections, very little cancer. It was you actually were you were killed or you starved. You didn't die from, as we say, pieces, unless God plagued you with something, right? That's the plagues.
I mean, I was just learning something or reading something recently in a study, I think in PubMed, it was saying, or no, I think it was an article on Scientific American, I think it was. But anyway, it was talking about the statistics for cancer since 1960. And I'd always heard, I'd mentioned this before on our show, that, before 1960, it was 1 in 3 women and then 1 in 2 men have, get a diagnosis at some point in their life. And now they're saying after the year 1960, it's 50% men or women, which is crazy, right?
It's actually approaching 1 out of every man. It's 1 out of 1 for men and 1 out of 2 for women. It's horrible.
Wow.
It's the war on cancer has failed miserably. But we're hoping what we're doing. And I'll even say what our whole mission, it's to gain enough knowledge to make cancer a choice. That's our mission. It's our mission statement. And so we really, really mean that. We're close. We're so very close to understanding all these things that go into fundamentally how to prevent cancer. And it's a lot easier to prevent cancer than it is to treat cancer. And I can tell you that after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of patients. So we're just it's just so great. We have a lot of young kids working for us now. And it's great because I look at them and go, oh my God, you're so lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky. It's amazing.
So Dr. Cooper, I wanted to get your thoughts about this. Do you think that when it comes to cancer and how that's playing out as the sort of buzzword in our society today, it's the great evil thing going on. Do you think that deuterium should be at the heart of any cancer treatment, or if someone wants to prevent cancer? Do you think that's more important than, say, how 5G electricity affects our calcium ion channels in our cells, or blue light toxicity, or chemicals, glyphosate? Do you think the main focus should be on deuterium?
I do, because I think that if you lower your deuterium levels or keep them in check and enable your body to be able to produce cellular energy, you're going to have a much more robust system that can deal with electromagnetic radiation, which we've seen. We've seen people who have been very sensitive, and once they've lowered their deuterium levels, they're not noticing as much. They can now go into the store and be around all the lights, and they can actually go grocery shopping. So a lot of these things we can't run and hide, really. I mean, this is the way the world is. What we can change is our deuterium levels, and that's how we have the power to be able to live in a world that we don't have a lot of power control over. So
Right.
But if we focus on that as number 101, yes, of course, if you're sensitive, you're going to reduce your exposure as much as you possibly can. But sometimes you're not able to do that. But you can, yes, we are breathing in deuterium, but the doctors have also created masks that can really reduce how much we're breathing in if it's in our environment. And we do have control over what we put in our mouth and what we drink. So we have a lot more control over managing our deuterium levels than we have control over anything else.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the glycosates, for instance, that you mentioned, the way they work is they actually go into the TCA cycle and they take out one of the pathways that make metabolic water. That's the way they work. That's why they're bad for you. So now your body can't make metabolic water. That's how it kills the plants, how they use it as a weed killer. That's what it's for. We were in Australia, and we were in a zoo, and we saw the
Tasmanian devil.
Yeah, the Tasmanian devil, and they have all tumors on them now.
Facial tumors.
Yeah, facial tumors.
Really?
They're blind, so they find their way around. They clean up the floor of the bush, really. They find their way around with their face, their noses.
And so all of this, the foliage stuff they use, just like glyphosates, that's what actually gives them cancer. So we talk to them, and now we're going to do a study where we give at least the ones in captivity deuterium depleted water so they don't disappear. So we're able to cure cancer in Tasmanian devils. So we're happy with that.
Yeah,
for you Australians.
Yeah, there you go. Dr. Cooper, I wanted to ask you about some of the practical ways to deplete deuterium, because you mentioned sleep, but it's one of those things, how do you improve your sleep? And people know they have to sleep better. So, I mean, sleeping issues are, some of the most common issues in our culture today, and digestive issues as well. But how can we deplete deuterium? You mentioned the water, improving sleep, and practically, how can we do these things better?
We first of all start with the deuterium depleted water because that works quickly and it lowers your deuterium levels so that your own natural mechanisms for depleting deuterium will start to work again. We focus on air, right, the breathing part. So we utilize the mask that if you can wear it while you sleep or throughout the day, we actually give you breathing exercises that you can do throughout the day to accentuate the benefits of the mask. But particularly while you're consuming the deuterium depleted water, the air that you exhale will have less deuterium in it than the air in your environment or your house or your bedroom. Okay. So you'll be taking less in, but you will also capture a little bit of your own carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide triggers your hemoglobin to release oxygen to your tissues. And that's very important. I mean, higher oxygen in your tissues is an indication of how robust you are and how you can really become stronger. Cancer cells don't like oxygen. That extra oxygen also is a deuterium binder, so it grabs a hold of it and it doesn't release it until you excrete it. So the breathing part is really the exposure to the what's going in through your nose is taken care of that way to reduce how much we're taking in. The food part, we really teach people how to eat a deuterium depleted diet. And that's taken care of by just educating them about which foods are high in deuterium, which are low. We probably don't have too much time to go into that right now. And we actually make more mitochondria by having more muscles. So we want to make sure that they're doing appropriate exercise depending on who they are and how old they are and what they're, how robust they are at the time. And sunshine. Sunshine is very important, but also light therapy in general to help heal our circadian rhythm. Many people have a broken circadian rhythm due to just being indoors and having unnatural light, especially when we're supposed to be winding down. We're confusing our pineal gland. It doesn't know to produce melatonin to help us to go to sleep. So we use light therapies to help heal our circadian rhythm. And really also just to talk to people about lifestyle as far as their stress and anxiety goes, because we seem to, and we all do have this kind of low-grade chronic anxiety because we take too much on, and it affects how well we can relax and go into REM sleep. REM sleep is when we do remove deuterium. We know that. There's probably many mechanisms that we may not know about regarding deuterium depletion, but we do know that REM sleep is important. And deep sleep is known as the repair and restore phase of sleep. So that's when we use this newfound energy from our cells to go and fix things that have gone awry. And sunshine, even, we've got receptors for light inside our guts, deep into our body. And how does it get there? How does light get from our skin into our body? It moves via a frequency. So this light resonance goes through into areas where we have these receptors. However, if we do have an overload of deuterium in there, it's going to bump into that frequency and it's going to break that resonance where it's going to become fractured and not get to where it's going to be able to be utilized. So it kind of is a little bit of a catch-22 sometimes. We have mechanisms in place, but as we do take these other methods of eating and breathing and moving in a way that we deplete it, then, it can kind of start lowering it itself and fixing things by itself. So it's kind of we have a 360-degree deuterium depleting lifestyle, which most of them are pretty easy to incorporate.
I like that. That's interesting. And what are your thoughts, both of you, on sweating? Does sweating help, like sauna therapy? And is that good?
What deuterium depletion does is it kicks in our own mechanisms for detoxing in general, because we have this energy to do that. Our body's designed to do that. It's going to try to get rid of stuff. Our skin, yes, it is our largest organ and it is an eliminative organ. But a lot of people who have constipation, which by the way, a lot of patients tell me that's improved with deuterium depletion, which is nice to hear. People don't like that. But our detox systems will kick in general, even as far as skin goes. And I like your ingredients that you're using, your colostrum, colostrum and your aloe vera, because I used that in the past as a skincare expert, both internally, because I started out on the exterior, but I very quickly went interior because I realized that skin health is a reflection of what's going on inside. But I also did use your colostrum and aloe just as a musk on the outside if people had acne while you were healing the inside.
Oh, great.
But as you lower your deuterium, first of all, you kick in your own natural detox systems. If people, some of them are going through heavy metal detox, they like to use the saunas to accelerate that, kicking it out. They do need to drink some more water at the time, so it can be a little bit more of an expensive process because we want to keep them hydrated. But also, you become much more efficient at extracting nutrients from your food. So, you'll take in all those, chlorophyll and all of those, especially for metals, it likes to bind to the, especially particles in the cilantro, things like that, that will help to grab a hold and bind toxins so that your body can excrete them.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's it's also fascinating, and I think, I have so many questions that I didn't even attempt to ask. So, because otherwise this would turn into.
We'll see you next week then.
Yeah, this would turn into Luke Stories, 5 hour.
That's what we do with our patients. We do make sure we keep in touch with them. We track them. We're always communicating with our patients once they're in a program with us, because a lot of it is so much comes up, and if they have questions, we want to answer them, and also we want to keep them listening to these things so that it stays on the forefront of their brain and they stay really up and motivated and making it a priority.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we also just made because of this, we made our first product and we released it last week.
Oh, cool.
And that is our mitochondria cleanse wellness kit. And it's the first time it's ever been made. So this is made to get rid of metabolic, all these, I'm gonna give you a lot of geek words now, metabolic crowding, to protect your nanomotors. And if you think, it just really blows out your mitochondria's engines. It's none of the stuff right at the subcellular level the way it's supposed to be done. So it's a 24-hour cleanse, and we're seeing great results for a lot of people that just want to get a little bit better. They feel they're strong already. So we're really proud of that. We suggest people in the wellness side really use that product at least once a year.
That's cool. I'm just showing people on YouTube your website here. It's ddcenters.com. And so now I'm completely fascinated by this, and I have a ton more questions. So if somebody is listening to this and they're listening in some other state or some other part of the world, what would you suggest? Because there's probably not a lot of centers like this around the world, are there?
Well, actually, we're opening up in China next month, Rome. We have one in Hungary.
Really?
We're growing pretty much. Australia, New Zealand.
That's what's fun. I was treating people one-on-one, and when I heard about this, I was like, well, that's kind of dumb. Everybody needs to know about this. So not only are we speaking to a lot of people who are hearing about it on an individual basis, but we really are training as many physicians as we can that are really on board with us, and many are realizing, wow, this is just really getting to the point. And so we're training. We're getting calls from physicians all over the world that want to incorporate this into their practices.
But they can call, make an appointment, and we give a 10-minute free conference, and then we have paid paid consultancies for those who are very ill or want more information. We are an education center first and foremost. As I said, as part of UCLA, we do a lot of research too. But our whole goal is, we want to treat more than 1 million patients to have better outcomes by using deuterium depletion. We want to train doctors over the next 3 years, and we want to prevent cancer in 1 million people over the next 5 years. That is our goals there, and we're going to do it.
Wow, that's so cool. Oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. Thanks so much for being on. We went 18 minutes over. I apologize for that, but thanks so much for being on today.
Thanks for all your interest and all your questions, and it really helps to open this up for people to understand.
My goodness, I swear, if I were with you in person, I could easily go for 3 or 4 hours, no problem.
Come on, we'll get you fixed up soon too.
There you go.
Make it even better.
Well, thank you again so much. I'll be in contact with Liz, and I'll send her the link to this video, and you guys can feel free to share it or publish it however you like. So. I appreciate you guys so much and doing what you're doing, educating. And I'm like you, Dr. Cooper. I feel like even nutritionists and people like that should be aware of these things, working clinically with patients who want alternative methods. I mean, this information has to get out.
It's so empowering for nutritionists to understand this. It will make their life much easier, and their patients will have a greater response, and everybody's going to be happy all around, both the practitioner and the patient.
Agreed. All right, guys. Well, thank you again for your time. You're amazing. I really appreciate it. And I'll be in touch soon with the link.
Thanks again.
Justin.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. Well, there you go. Wow. That was an interesting show. Really, really interesting. I find it really fascinating that most people don't know much about deuterium, let alone naturopathic doctors, people who work with people specifically with their health conditions, whether they're health coaches or whatever they are. It's just interesting to me that this idea of deuterium, I was kind of under the assumption maybe it's a bit of a fad, or I wasn't really sure. It's one of those things too where, a chiropractor is always going to think that the solution to everyone's disease is chiropractic, or someone who works specifically with light thinks that light is the answer, the end all be all to everything, or someone works specifically with recall healing or spiritual modalities is going to think that that's the end all be all. But in actuality, healing has to be done at a multi-layered approach and a multi-level approach. And it has to incorporate many different facets. And part of my job is to distill down information of guests who come on the show and give it to you guys, so that you know that there are options. And that's one of the things that I think is so important, is for us to know that there are options out there. So critical, because if you know of someone who's dying of cancer, or whose body has some extra cancer cells, and they've never heard of deuterium before, this might be something that they could look into and use it as part of whatever protocol they choose to go down, whether it's chemotherapy, radiation, whether it's surgery, whether it's 100% natural, maybe it's a hybridized approach using natural methods as well as conventional methods. So having something like the ability to know what deuterium is, and I find it interesting that Dr. Q was saying at the beginning of the show that all aging is a result of the body's inability to deplete deuterium. Really fascinating stuff. I mean, I just think that it's funny, because I was going to ask him, there's so many questions I had for both of them. But one of the questions I wanted to ask him was, I'm sure he's familiar with Aubrey de Grey and people that are in the anti-aging world, the pro-youthing world. I wanted to ask him what their thoughts are if he's presented this idea of deuterium to them, and what they think about it. And I also wanted to get further into the idea of what it actually does, because the mitochondria, these nanomotors, create a magnetic field around the mitochondria, and the mitochondria is actually producing electrical or magnetic energy. And I'm wondering if the deuterium's breaking those nanomotors, causing the magnetic fields of the body to be decreased as well. And according to Dr. Jerry Tennant, he says healing is voltage. I think he wrote a book called that, Healing is Voltage. And so, it's interesting. Are these things gumming up the body's ability to produce and receive a magnetic field, and then that gets exacerbated by this fake magnetic field that we're all living in under 5G? It's all becomes super, super fascinating. And that's why I like to really focus on mitochondrial health, at least on a physical level, mitochondrial health and what's going on electrically, magnetically, and what's going on in the body with, when it comes to light, water, magnetism. I think on a physical level, that's where we should focus. And obviously deuterium plays a huge role in that. And I wanted to share with you, speaking of, he mentioned Juve, Dr. Q, during the show, and that's the red light therapy device that we like to use. But I want to share with you this little brief conversation we had with Nathan Walls, who talked a lot about light therapy, and not specifically the Juve therapy device, but just what light does to the body and to the mitochondria. And this is sort of an extension on what we're talking about today. So check this out.
So red light actually penetrates your skin much deeper.
Okay.
Red light can penetrate up to 30 centimeters.
Oh, wow.
So it doesn't penetrate as deeply into bone, but if you have, fat or muscle, it penetrates pretty deeply into that. So blue light, it doesn't penetrate as deeply, but it's the highest energy frequency of light in the visible spectrum. And blue light is in the sun too. So blue light is not a bad thing in nature, because when you get blue light from the sun, it's balanced with these other colors of light. And red light is very regenerative. And that's why I'm sure you've had people on your show, Justin, that talk about photobiomodulation or low-level light therapy, using specific frequencies of red light to regenerate your skin or to speed up muscle recovery. It's very big in professional sports. It's big. A lot of vets are using it now too. I think I hear about more vets using it on animals than doctors using it on humans. But beauticians use it. It's really good for your skin. Some places women go to for, get a haircut, they'll put them in front of like a red light thing in their face because it's good for their skin too. Yeah, it'll also increase your testosterone production too. This might be TMI for some people, so cover your ears. But in the summer, sun rises right into my apartment, and so I open my door and I'm buck naked in the morning for the sunrise. I'm doing my meditation. But that increases your testosterone for sure, and that's also going to help with prostate. But for prostate, in addition to red light, you do want to be getting some UV light too, so you can increase your local melatonin there. But if you can't get outside and do it, then red light will offer a benefit too. So some of like the key spectrums of light that people use red light therapy for is 660 nanometers. And that's going to be really good. Let's say you work out and your muscles are really sore. That's going to help with muscle recovery. That's pretty good for your skin. And you can use that, on your skin, or you can use it for muscle recovery. But if you use it for 15 to 20 increments, you can get a benefit from that. So 660 is a big one. 850 nanometers, which is more infrared, that has other benefits. I think 850 is more for brain. So they're using, and if you want to search this more, you can look up LLLT, which is low level light therapy or low level laser therapy, or photobiomodulation. And one of the top researchers on photobiomodulation. But if you look at, if you Google LLLT Hamblin Harvard, he's got some very kind of concise, easy to read articles, and he has this one like an image of a human, and it goes through, it talks about all the different things that they're using red light for.
Wow.
Such as muscle recovery, neurodegeneration. If you have a sluggish liver, you can put it on your liver, and it'll improve your liver, because remember, red light penetrates up to 30 centimeters into your body, and red light can turn that ATPase. So those photons from the red light can literally go in your cells, in your mitochondria, and make ATP. They can make energy. So and the way this works is, your red blood cells, what's really interesting is if you blow up a red blood cell, it's kind of shaped like a donut, but it's kind of shaped like a satellite, or like a dish. Why are dishes shaped like that? So they can capture the signal. So your red blood cells are shaped in a certain way so they can capture photons of light, capture that light, and then they take it to your cells, and your mitochondria can use that to make energy. So that's another thing, using red light also improves your mitochondrial function. So it has all sorts of benefits, but if you really want to dig into it, just kind of Google the terms I told you, and you'll find a whole lot of information on the internet.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that little tidbit there with Nathan Walls. But when we're talking about red light therapy, but when it really comes down to all of this stuff, I think it's really important for all of us to understand mitochondrial health and what this does, because it's kind of difficult, because there are these invisible processes that go on in the body that control, at least on a physical level. I think there's other things happening as well on an emotional, spiritual level that are even deeper than this invisible process we're talking about with the mitochondrial health. But I think it really behooves all of us to understand some of these things and to get into the physics, into the biophysics of this stuff. And you don't have to be an expert, and you don't have to understand how photons really work and how deuterium really works, but understanding the basic concepts, I think, could be a life-changing thing, because if what both of them we're talking about on today's show is actually true, then that actually means that not only can you live to your 150, 200 years old, but you can also live that long and have a healthy, disease-free body full of energy. Now, that's like a foreign concept, right? And so if it comes down to that, and having to do a little bit of work and understanding, hydrogen and mitochondria and all of this stuff, to me, it's worth it. I personally am not someone, I'm not like a guy that's driven by science. I'm not a guy that's like really wants to understand the subtle nuances of all this stuff, but I want to know the general concepts, and I want to know the things that I can do easily in my life that will help improve not just the length of my life, but the quality of my life as well. And I think that if we can do that, some people really love the science of it. Some people really love understanding what's going on a physics and biophysics level and want to understand the photons and how all this stuff works. But when you listen to a show like that with Dr. Collins and Dr. Q, I just think it's really interesting that like you still have these people out there that are saying things on the internet and making it sound so simple. It's kind of strange because on one level it is so simple, but on another level there's so much science that goes into why the body ages and breaks down. And so understanding a little bit of that, I think, is really, really helpful. And that's part of my job. Like I was telling them before the show, I'm not sure if I said this on the show or not, but we've never done a show on deuterium. And, whether or not it's a real thing and it's not just a marketing thing, I think is to be determined. But I tend to, like what they're saying a lot. And I think that most of what they're saying has merit. And I think that it's really in questions. It's really important for us to have questions and to dig deeper and to know further what's really going on in the body. Big Fat Mama says, Justin, can we call them back for a 10-minute free consultation live on air and ask them my questions? Oh my goodness. You know what's interesting? I feel bad. I'm sorry that I didn't get to any of your questions today. I really apologize for that. It's really challenging for me as a host to be able to bring out the right information. I mean, doing this kind of work is fascinating because there's the information that gets the guest excited. And then you can make viral videos out of that, right? Or there's information you could ask the guest that would be the best benefit for all the people listening. Or you could ask questions that you're specifically interested in. And so it's a balancing of all those things that I try to bring to the table. And I just had so many questions for them. I could have gone on and on for days about what types of fat to consume, what types of, he mentioned earlier on in the show about, what did he say? He said about eating animal fat, right? That's going to be deuterium depleted animal fat, which is fine. And then he said the grasses that the cow eats or the animal eats is deuterium depleted as well. And then he kind of went on talking for a few minutes, and I wanted to ask him, well, why couldn't we just eat the grass as well? Aside from, other issues, right? With that, environmental toxins and things like that. But there's so many different questions that I could ask that when they would talk for a couple minutes, it's my job to ask the questions that are going to be the most beneficial to all of us. And so the point, I guess, is to highlight people like this who have a really unique and interesting take on health and our own healing so that we can pursue further, because it's not really meant to be an end-all be-all show. It's really meant to introduce people and their work to all of us. And you guys can then take it further and call them, or, perhaps we might do a show. I think we might do a show again with them in person. I'd like to do that. Go up to LA. I think they're just up in LA, which is only about an hour north of where we are, and ask them some questions. I think that would be much easier to ask in person. We're working on our studio right now. For those that don't know, we've had quite a few people email in on Instagram and stuff asking us about the progress of that. But we're working on bringing guests back into the studio and having everything work, and possibly do live shows with the guests in studio, because there's just things that you can get to live that you can't get to over connection like that, because a lot of times they can't hear you. So I do the best that I can, and basically to highlight, somebody's work. And if they want to go further, obviously you can't answer every question and ask every question in one interview. That's what people write books for. So my job again is just to highlight people and to bring them to you and give them a platform so that they can then get their work out there into the world, and someone will find it, hopefully, and overcome their health condition as a result of their work. You know, it was interesting what he said at the end. I thought this was fascinating, and I should probably connect up with Ty Bollinger from The Truth About Cancer, because if deuterium really is connected to cancer in the way that they're talking about, then there would be a clear connection with having someone like him or Laszlo Boros on The Truth About Cancer and give people that piece. You know, a couple things, The Truth About Cancer, I feel like they could highlight a little bit more is the emotional, spiritual connection to cancers. Because if you look at Dr. Hammer and German New Medicine and Recall Healing, you're looking at cancers going away based on just purely doing spiritual work. So there's that piece that I think they could focus a little bit more on. And then there's also the piece of the light and how blue light affects mitochondrial health and cancer growth and cancer metastasis as well. So I think they could focus a little bit more on those two things and now maybe on deuterium. And so the problem, though, is that with a series like Truth About Cancer, it's sort of like if you have people on a podcast, right? If you have like 4 guests on a podcast, then, you know, if 100% of content gets put out, then that means each guest can only contribute 25% of the overall available content. And if me, the host, if I contribute, say, 30% of the content, that means 4 people are now vying for, 70% of what gets said. And so the level of opportunity to go deep diminishes the more people you have on a podcast. And the same way with The Truth About Cancer, because you can't have an endless 700 person Truth About Cancer series. You know, it's just too many people. And so by including some, you're going to be excluding others. And so, but that's, you know, part of Ty's job is to vet out and to sort of make sure that he invites the right people on for what he's trying to accomplish. And I think that, I think the work that he's doing is awesome, and it's fascinating to me that people in modern culture just don't have no idea, about cancer, about how it forms, or I didn't know that there was a deuterium connection between this and cancer. It makes sense from one perspective. One thing I wanted to find out from him, and I don't know if you guys listening felt the same way, but was like, do those nanomotors, can they get rebuilt? And that's what I thought was interesting. Is it possible for those to be rebuilt by depleting your body of deuterium? Because I understood that cycle that Dr. Collins was talking about, that the more you're unable to deplete deuterium, then the more deuterium comes in, and the more it comes in, the more it takes away your ability to deplete it. So it becomes like this rapid aging cycle of your body breaking down. You guys are talking about distillation. I've heard too that distillation in RO water does not deplete deuterium. I don't know if that's true. I haven't done any sampling myself. I haven't tested it myself, but all you and I know is just what we read on the internet, right? Or what people say in podcasts or say on stage, but we don't really know unless we do our own scientific studies. So, it's challenging, right? Because we're all sort of parroting other people's content. Unless we're actually doing the research ourselves and looking at things. Rainwater, Bob Dylan, for me, I wouldn't touch rainwater, unless you really filtered it, unless you really, really filtered it because of the acids that are in that and the contaminants. Stephanie Sneff was on our show a while back talking about glyphosates and the role that they play in the cycle and the water cycle and the hydrological cycle, and because of the fact that she was saying that glyphosates are now obviously being sprayed on corn, and 10% of our fuel is made from ethanol, which is derived from corn. So that means there's a certain percentage that we're breathing in from exhaust. So if we're breathing in deuterium, or if we're breathing in glyphosates, if our environment is polluted and we're breathing or we're drinking the water that's coming through the sieve that is the clouds in the environment, I don't know, how much I would trust that. Even if you live in a pristine environment like, southern New Zealand, I forget what the name of that is, the state down there, or southern Australia, Tasmania, if you're living somewhere very pristine, I don't know. I don't trust what we've done to the environment. myself. Rainwater with the air pollution is not safe. For filtering, only RO is effective and therefore is also needs distillation. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. Personally, I wouldn't trust rainwater. So I agree with you there. For filtering, only RO is effective. I mean, we've had people say the exact opposite. So, I would have to actually do the scientific studies, do the research. Here's the thing when it comes to people making claims. So this is the thing that we all have to think about. And that is, let's say someone says that, like you say, only filtering, only RO is the best filter, right? We have an RO system on our house. So I'm not picking on you per se. I'm just saying that this is the problem with making claims, is that if you say that only RO is safe and effective, then you would have to show me, like, for example, in rainwater. I wouldn't trust it myself, but I can't categorically say that rainwater is toxic because let's say there's a certain amount of pollutants and contaminants in rainwater, right? Let's say there's a little bit of that, or a certain amount, whatever percentage it might be. Then you have to determine what those chemicals are. And then after that, you have to determine how much of those chemicals are there, right? So what it is and how much of it is there. And then you have to determine how much of it actually gets into the water that you drink. And so let's say you're able to figure all of that out, right? So at that point, you're able to figure that out and you know that. So then you have to figure out, okay, if I drink that water, how much of it do I have to drink? It's like the medical industry with medications. They have their LD50, their lethal dose in 50% of the population. So we don't have that in the natural realm. So we don't know what our LD50 is of rainwater that contains contaminants, right? So you have to know what it is and what concentrations it is in your particular area. And then you have to understand how much of it is in the water that you drink. And then when you finally have all that figured out, then you have to figure out exactly how your body, not everybody else's body, responds to that rainwater. So let's say you have a really clean internal system and you have a really great liver, you have really great intestines and colon and kidneys, and your body's ability to deplete deuterium, say, is incredibly high, and you have a high redox potential, and your heteroplasmy rate is through the roof, and you're able to, your autophagy rates, everything is working pristine in your body so that you can deal with that water, right? So if you drink that water versus someone else who's sick, who's really sick, you'd have to say then that water is okay for you, but not for them. And so when you come into claims and saying things, for everyone, let's just understand that it's really difficult to come to verifiable conclusions from a scientific perspective. Whatever their claim is talking about is going to affect your body in that way. We all have a different mitochondrial function. We all have different levels of deuterium. We all have different abilities to get into lower those levels of deuterium. We all have different redox potentials. We all have different digestion, different exposures. We all have different family traumas. We all have different physical and emotional issues that we're dealing with. We all have different abilities to overcome and detoxify our bodies. So saying something as a categoric fact, I'm not saying that those facts don't exist, but it's hard to spread those facts out over 7 billion people. So that's the really challenging part. So what I like to encourage everyone to do is to try things for yourself, right? Try things, try them out and do some testing on yourself. You say it's all complicated because you don't know exactly what's there and how much. Another reason why distilled water is the only one okay for everyone. And people have to get over the mainstream myth that all ions are the same. Yeah, there's people that say that, distilled water is not good, and I've heard all the arguments from being involved in this since 2003. I've heard Andrew Morton Weber's discourses on the benefits of distilled water. I've heard all of it. And so I think really what it gets down to is doing some experimentation and doing testing yourself. If you really want to be categorically emphatic about making claims that one solution is good for 7 billion people, then you really need to do testing on all 7 billion people with that particular assay of water. And so this is why I think it's really important to do your own testing and learn as much as you can. I mean, some people will say the opposite of what they were saying today, and so it's all there for all of us to I think really dig deeper and to dive in, and to see if it's right, if it's true for us. You know what I mean? And so that's, like I said before, that's my job, is to bring some of these people to you, and so that way you guys can see maybe another tool in your tool belt if you're coming down with a chronic issue. So I hope you guys enjoyed that show a lot. I thought it was really interesting, and I really want to dive more deeply into this whole world of deuterium. And I understand that there's a financial gain with them, because they're doing the testing and they're doing the, some of the other clinical stuff. And they're a business, just like everybody else is a business, right? They have to make money for them to be able to continue doing the work that they're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. The trick is to just make sure if what someone is saying really resonates with you, because there's nothing wrong with somebody like them earning a living off of information and products. And, if they're helping people and their heart is in the right place and they're doing the right things, and, their spirit is aligned with what they're doing, I think there's no better way to earn a living, actually. And that's what we should all focus on and strive to do, is to earn a living doing the things that we love that ultimately helps humanity. And that's part of what I'm doing by bringing these people to the forefront and giving them a platform to share some of their information that I think could really help people. If someone really took the advice that we talk about on today's show, I really do feel like as long as they have everything aligned in their psyche, in their mind, and their emotions, applying most of what we talk about on our show can help turn people's health around. I really do. And that's my mission, is to explore options. And I think it's really important for all of us to explore our options. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that show. Yeah, you guys are just awesome. Thank you guys all for being on the show. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are just really, really great. Carol, Bob Dylan, 635574, Big Fat Mama was here again. Sarah Bayer, my goodness. Chris Sellers, great to see you, Chris, as well, and Big Fat Mama as well. I've been seeing you a lot lately. It's a lot of fun to have you here, as well as Christina, sir. You guys are awesome, so I really appreciate you being here. Stay tuned on Wednesday. So we're going to have a kind of a controversial show coming up on Wednesday with Mr. Elliot Hulse. And I say controversial because he's providing a bit of a what do I call that? He's providing a little bit of an alternative view of this idea of the feminization of men. And we're going to talk about that on Wednesday. And I really do feel like I align with most everything that he talks about. And we're going to talk about that. And he's got a grounding camp. He's a weightlifter, but he's a health and fitness coach. But man, is he really into philosophy and spirituality, and he is a really, really interesting guy, and I'm really excited to have him on the show. I've known about his work for many, many years, and now he helps young men be the kind of young men that we need in our culture. He helps people to have a backbone and to develop their inner character, and I think that's really important. I think a lot of that is lost in today's world, and so and then on Friday next week, we've got Scott Nelson talking about photobiomodulation. We'll talk about the Juve red light therapy device. Zach Bush is coming up. Dr. Randy Tent. We'll have Nathan Walls again on optimizing health and wellness. We're going to talk with him about mitochondria and light. Katie Singer. That's going to be a great show. We'll talk with Dr. Sam Byrne on holistic eye care, Dr. Michael Goldberg on preventing chronic degenerative diseases. So a lot of really cool stuff coming up, guys. I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to our show on YouTube, on Stitcher. We're now on Spotify. So if you guys use Spotify, we're on there now. And we're going to be hopefully on iHeartRadio here pretty soon as well. So we're going back and forth with them, trying to get on their thing. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thanks for tagging me on Instagram too. If you enjoy a show, please share it and tag us on Instagram. We'd love to see what you think of our show and share it with your audience and all that good stuff. So I really appreciate that. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a link to our Instagram account down below. Mark, great to have you here as well, my friend. That's awesome. So many cool people here. Wow, Haji Bokrit, I haven't seen you. Can you move your live stream in the evening? Let's see. What did you say? Can you move? You asked about moving our live stream in the evening, Pacific time. I wish I could. But Haji, we have twin boys, our first kids, William and Benjamin, and they're 8 months old now. And that would completely screw up our evening routine. So unfortunately, we can't move the time. And then also in the evening, it's really difficult for our guests as well to be on the show at that time. Most people do their interviews during working hours. So I apologize for that, but it's just sort of is what it is. So every 10:45 a.m. Pacific time is when the shows are going to be live. And so if you guys want to check them out, the archives are also available as well, a few hours after on YouTube. And then on iTunes, they're a couple months old, but we're releasing about 2 shows a week on iTunes. And guys, make sure to subscribe on iTunes too, because we're releasing shows every single day on iTunes. So 7 days a week. Here's kind of what happened is that I realized this is episode 661. So I realized a while back that, so a while back I asked my Instagram followers, I said, what guests would you like to see us have on the show? And I have to say maybe 60% of the people that they mentioned were guests who were already on. And then I started realizing, man, we've done 630 shows and people they get lost, right? They get completely lost and no one hears those shows that we did 2 or 3 years ago that are completely as relevant today as they were 2 or 3 years ago. Probably even more relevant in some cases. And that's one of the things I like about doing a podcast like this and a radio show is that the content that we're putting out is timeless. Although it may take place 2 or 3 years ago, the content itself, the meat of what we're talking about is timeless. And so it's relevant in any time you listen to it. So I was starting to think, man, a lot of people are saying guests that have already been on the show, but they don't know they've been on the show. So then it got me thinking, we need to somehow repurpose those old shows somehow. And so that's what we've done. So 7 days a week on iTunes, if you're subscribed to us, you'll get a brand new show you probably never heard of before. So 2 days out of the week, you'll get brand new shows. And those are the shows that are episode like 600 something. 650, 660. Those are those shows because that's what we're at now. And then the other shows are going to be episode like 150 or 270 or 312. All of those shows are going to be released every single day on iTunes. So stuff you've never heard of before. And we've had some amazing people on. So it's one of my ways of getting more content out there and also highlighting people that are doing awesome work that just have been lost in the archives. And so that's part of what I'm doing. 635-574, what backups do you have what if YouTube bans or deletes videos? It's not likely now, but it's getting worse. I know. I hear what you're saying. What I would probably have to do is most of the videos we've done or audios weren't videos until recently. So all of our shows, although they're on YouTube, are basically screenshots of the podcast itself. So there's no actual video, it's just a screenshot. So all of that to say that we don't have any backups of it. So what we would have to do is we have backups of our audio files so we could find a new platform if that were to ever happen. But so that would be one of the things that we would have to do. So yeah, it's getting worse out there, guys. I don't know if you guys are following what's going on in the news, but man, they are really coming down on what they call fake news in today's culture, specifically on YouTube. And they're doing it with, love them or hate them. Alex Jones was taken off iTunes, who's taken off Stitcher, who's taken off SoundCloud, who's taken off YouTube, who's taken off Facebook, who's taken off everywhere. Because they didn't like the content. And now YouTube is banning content or channels from monetizing their content with ads who talk about vaccines. We did a show a while back with Dr. What is his name? Doctor up in San Francisco. Thomas Cowan. He wrote the book, The Heart is Not a Pump. And we talked about his new book, the changing nature of childhood vaccine or vaccination or illnesses, I think, all about vaccines. And if you watch that video on YouTube, you'll see below it, YouTube has a little snippet of information from Wikipedia which is bought and paid for, that is basically talking about the benefits and touting the benefits of vaccines. And so I don't even know. I mean, me saying that word right there might get this particular video demonetized or whatever they do, or taken down, you know? So it's a war of information. It's a war of words. It's a war and a control of our mindset. And it really is. And so what they're trying to do is to prevent people. So eventually I assume what they'll try to do is to ban accounts or take down videos or whatever it is that they're trying to do, because they're trying to control information. And it's sad, really. But I think what happens, or what needs to happen, is more people speaking out, not just about the injustice of that, but also speaking out of their truth. And so doing, like, imagine the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people that have consumed our content. Let's say all of you as listeners talk about, let's pick something here. Talk about a particular therapy that overcomes something like cancer, say. If all of you did one YouTube video, that would be more powerful than our show combined with any other show, because there's power in numbers. And so when we share information or create information that's empowering, eventually, if everyone did that, if they shut down, let's say you have a really popular YouTube channel that gets millions of views every single day, and then you were to decide to do a video like that, you know, and they shut you down, they can't shut down hundreds of thousands of people that have YouTube videos or YouTube channels like yours, because that would shut their entire business down, right? So that's why it's like the whole Bitcoin thing, where there's a framework that we all tap into, and by using the actual framework, we create more security and a strengthening of the entire network. So by sharing information, that strengthens the network of all of us and weakens their network, because if they were to get rid of all these accounts, their entire platform would crumble. So that's why it's really important for us to either create information or share information about these kinds of topics, because I can't do it all. Mike Adams from Natural News can't do it all. Ty Bollinger can't do it all. There's only so many people we can all reach. And so there's power in numbers, and that's why I think it's really important for all of us to share information that's going to be empowering to other people. And so, you know, that's part of what my mission here is to bring this information to the masses, because I don't know about you guys, but are you guys sick and tired of seeing friends and family die needlessly of a disease that they could have easily prevented, or a disease that there's known ways to reverse it using natural methods instead of going through some toxic treatment? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like, it's like that verse in the Bible. My people are perishing for a lack of knowledge. And that's what's happening. Knowledge is trying to be controlled and manipulated, and they're trying to give you a narrative, a social narrative of what's true and what's not true. And they don't like channels like ours. They don't like channels like Ty's or anybody else who's sharing information that basically empowers the people to take care of their own life, so that they're not beholden to pharmaceutical drugs, the pharmaceutical industry, or any of that. If all of us are able to take care of ourselves, then we have no need for their services. And that basically bankrupts their entire platform and their entire sense of control and social control, really, when you get down to it. So that's why, you know, it's really powerful for us to share information and to take care of ourselves. And so I try to bring that from every level, from the spiritual, emotional, to the trauma, to the deuterium, to the mitochondria, to the biophysics, to the food that we eat, to the toxins we're exposed to. I try to attack cover every angle of what makes us healthy and what depletes our health. And so this show today, Deuterium, I think was a really interesting show to look into, and to really see if it's something that you could do in your own life to regain your energy. And so I hope you enjoyed the show. You know, that's part of what I'm here to do, is to share empowering information. So you guys are amazing. Awesome. I love it when you guys are here. Carol, thanks for being here. Christina, billboards taken down in Canada for making true statements and asking questions. Wow. Isn't that interesting? Well, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It does not surprise me at all. Devin Pearl says, has Dr. Robert Morse been on here before? He would be a good interview. Yes, he has not been on, but we're in talks to have him on very soon, and he may even be scheduled. The schedule is posted on our homepage, Extreme Health Radio, and we're booked out about 2 to 3 months in advance. So I'm not sure if our schedule person has locked down that show with Dr. Robert Morse yet, but hopefully we have, because he would be a really good interview and a great guy to have on the show, empowering people. He comes at things from more of I think a vegan perspective, does he not? But regardless, I don't know if there's a right diet for anybody. I think we all need to do our own research and to do what works best for us. And so having him on is he's on the list. So he's either scheduled or he's going to be on soon. So yes, guys. Well, I think I'm going to head out. It's time for me to go. Haji says, how do you get your living? How do you get your living? I'm not sure what you mean. Haji, can you repeat the question in the chat room? I'm not sure what you mean by how do you get your living? So yeah, make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. Pass the show on to your friends. Tag friends on Instagram. Leave us a rating and review in iTunes. If you haven't subscribed there already, I would appreciate it. That is a really great way to support the show. And as always, the ways to support the show are purchasing through our Amazon link on our homepage. That's a way to support the show. We have a Patreon page that you can donate $1, $2, $5, $6, $10 a month. That's another way to donate to us. People do that on PayPal as well, if you like the work that we're doing. And we also have the products that are in our store. And if you go to our store, if you go to Extreme Health Radio at the top, there's a link to the store. And this colostrum, the aloe vera, the Juve red light therapy device, the sauna that we promote, all the products that we use and love are in our store. So if you want to support us that way, that would be great. And then finally, our flagship product is our Extreme Health Academy. That's a monthly membership website where we take all of the concepts and the ideas and the why, and we turn them into how-tos inside the academy through courses, through emotional, inspirational support in our forums, and through the courses that we do every month and the live Q&A calls that we do every week. A lot of amazing things happen inside the Extreme Health Academy. So if you guys are interested in that, there's a link down below if you want to check that out for a free 14-day trial as well. So we've got about 14 courses, and these courses are like 4 hours long. Like, they're really high level stuff. So, it's really important to get this kind of information. They're not going to teach this stuff to you in school or even nutrition school for that matter. So this is high level stuff for those of you that want to take your health to new levels. So I just appreciate you guys. This is how we earn our living. Promoting products that we believe in, that we use in our store, and we make a little commission from that. So if you trust us and like what we do and are interested in buying something that might benefit your health, then check out our store. That's one way. And then we have a number of people that donate just every month, just out of the goodness of their own hearts, on Patreon and PayPal. That's available on our homepage. And then Amazon, many of you guys shop through our Amazon links. That's another way to support the show. And then finally, the Extreme Health Academy. And by all of you guys doing this, it allows us to continue to do shows and to feature people like Dr. Q Collins and people like that. So it's, I don't know what it is. I think there's something really, for me, I always knew there's something, my life was about something bigger than just sitting behind a computer all day doing programming stuff that I was doing before. And having a platform like this and helping to inspire people and to educate people, that's the most important thing, is to educate everybody on our options, because with education comes freedom. And so I always knew that there's something bigger for me, and I wanted to help make the world a better place. And earning a living while you're doing that is just it's just a tremendous blessing to be able to do, combine those two things. So I'm just honored to be here. I'm honored to be in your life and to be doing what I'm doing. So it's just cool, because it costs a lot of money. We have a studio here that we pay for every month, and you guys help us with your support, pay for that. This internet connection that we have here is gosh, I think it's like $300 a month just for the internet, so that we can do these live shows, you know, in a good way, you know, that's not choppy and all that. And we're going to be bringing guests in studio and, you know, paying people to do our booking and keep up the website and the hosting. The hosting is like $180 a month. So, you know, it expenses add up, but it's so worth it when I realize and get emails from people all around the world, sharing with me how a particular guest or something that I said allowed them to take complete transformation of their life. It's just really, really, it's transformative for me. And I invite you guys to do that as well. Really look into what your strengths are and look into those things in your life that you're passionate about, and start really getting into success technology and success principles, and really tying that in with your health. If you tie the three-headed monster of success principles and personal development, your own health, along with the spiritual, emotional connection, nothing's more fulfilling than that. So earning a living by helping to educate people and to making the world a better place is something that's been life-changing and transformative for me. And I think we can all do that if we connect to our gifts and to help other people and to align your heart in the right place and to really be there to serve people. I think things can really, really happen. We live in an age where anything is possible. Right now, we're able to disseminate information in any way we possibly can think of. And that's why I think it would behoove all of us to focus on those things, even if it's just a side thing that you do for a while. But I think that a big part of health, in my opinion, is connection with others, is connection to your family, and making and doing a right livelihood. That is spending your time doing something that really connects with the core mission of who you are. And I think that's really, really important. And so I've been there, you know, most of my life doing jobs that I absolutely hated, or working for companies that I found that whose morals I no longer agreed with, but you needed the money to make your bills. I've worked multiple jobs all at the same time, knowing full well that it wasn't part of my mission and who I am. And it wasn't until I connected with this and helping people through health that I really step into, I think, something that really works for me. And it's something that I feel very much a lot of fulfillment by doing. And so all of you guys can have that as well, especially in today's world. So I want you to think about that, because there is a huge benefit to doing the work that you love, that's helping people, that you're earning a living by doing. It's a win-win-win across the board. So yeah, I don't know how I got onto that, but anyway, I do love you guys so much. You guys are amazing. Thank you for being here. It's awesome. Make sure to check out this controversial show we have coming up on Wednesday with Elliot Hulse. This is going to be a good show. This is really going to be a good show. I'm really excited about him. I've been consuming his content for years, for probably 10 years. And so it's going to be a lot of fun talking with Elliot about the concepts and ideas that he's exploring these days as a fitness philosopher. Maybe I'll call him that, fitness philosopher. So anyway, guys, love you very, very much. Thank you, Haji, for considering buying through our store on Amazon and stuff like that. We really appreciate your support. All of you guys, you're amazing. So I'm going to go drink that green juice behind me, eat that apple, and I will see you guys on Wednesday, 10:45 a.m. Pacific. And love you guys, and I'll see you then.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog, or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only, and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse